The International Organization for Standardization, ISO, is a private, non-governmental worldwide federation which was founded to promote the creation and implementation of uniform standards facilitating international exchange of goods and services. The ISO's members are elected representatives from national standards organizations in more than 120 countries. The U.S. representative is the American National Standards Institute, a private standards organization. U.S. trade associations, professional societies, and government agencies are also involved in the work of the ISO through their membership and participation in technical advisory groups, which work with the ISO's technical committees to draft international standards. It was founded from the union of two organizations, the ISA, International Federation of National Standardization Associations, founded in 1926, and the UNSCC, United Nations Standards Coordination Committee, which was founded in 1944. In 1946, delegates from 25 countries met with each other in London and came up with the idea to create a new international organization, which its main goal was to facilitate the international coordination and unifications of industrial standards. ISO officially started its operations on February 23, 1947. By 1950s, ISO technical committees were starting to produce recommendations, which were ultimately intended to influence existing national standards. In the era of 1950s through 1960, a rising number of new ISO members were coming from developing countries, which ISO directly affects developing countries, whereas ISO was of high value to them because ISO had practical solutions to a variety of issues. Some issues included international trade, technology transfer, and technical know-how for products, performance, quality, safety, and environmental specifications. However, developing countries face problems in comparison to industrialized nations, primarily to lack of industrialization, institutions, and of course limitations of financial and technical resources. ISO assisted to facilitate these problems of developing countries. Therefore, they could play a role in ISO and work without incurring the cost of full membership. ISO continued to help benefit developing countries as time went on. In 1972, ISO had its first annual reporting, which indicated explosive growth of international trade, which is directly caused by the expansion and revolution of transportation methods. In 1979, ISO aimed to ensure that regulations, standards, testing, and certification procedures did not create obstacles to trade internationally, which helped further progression of international trade. This was called the Agreement on Technical Barriers to Trade, which is now the WTO-TBT. The GATT, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, influenced all of this. In the 1980s, ISO entered into new areas of work, designed to have enormous impact on organizational practices and trade. This was associated with quality management standards. The first standard issued by ISO was ISO 8402 in 1986, which standardized quality management terminology. It was followed by ISO 9001, 9002, and 9003. These all provided varying scopes of activity relating to different standards. However, the ISO 9000 series of standards are the most widely known standards ever. In the 1990s, ISO created standards devoted to environment and leadership standards. This was to help coordinate world responses to common environmental challenges. In 1991, ISO and the CEN, a European Standardization Committee, made an agreement on common ISO and CEN guidelines, named the Vienna Agreement. Between 1994 and 2003, ISO experienced a tremendous growth, almost 50% in membership from both governmental and non-governmental organizations. So in 2003, they thought it was time to develop further balanced national views of standards. Therefore, for the year 2010, ISO had 7 key objectives for ISO strategic planning. First, developing a consistent and multi-sector collection of globally relevant international standards. Then, ensuring the involvement of stakeholders. Then, raising the awareness and capacity of developing countries. Then being open to partnership for the efficient development of international standards, and promoting to use of vocabulary standards as an alternative or as a support to technical regulations. Then being the recognized provider of international standards and guides relating to conformity assessment. Lastly, to provide efficient procedures and tools for the development of coherent and complete range of deliverables. On top of everything, they have published more than 19,000 international standards.
The purpose of the ISO 9000 series is to become familiar with basic concepts, language, and requirements of the ISO family of quality management. It is the purpose of ISO 9000 to increase operating efficiency while fulfilling customers' quality requirements. ISO 9000 applies applicable regulatory requirements to organizations who become ISO certified. Organizations have to achieve continual improvement and enhance customer satisfaction in order to comply with ISO 9000 regulations. The ISO family measures and monitors processes within an organization. A process can be defined as a set of interrelated or interacting activities that transform inputs into outputs. Monitoring and measuring is used during a process in which auditors monitor outputs to ensure that the process satisfies ISO requirements. ISO versions 9001 and 9004 have been created to enable specific sectors of business management systems or sector-specific requirements, such as the ISO TS 16949, which is used in the automotive industry. This can help companies gain recognition through national or regional awards. The different versions of the ISO family help different companies and organizations throughout the world create strategies that work for their companies. ISO 14000 deals with environmental quality control. Other specific fields in the ISO family include occupational health and safety, business risk, and social responsibility, just to name a few. ISO 9001 version 2008 is based on 8 quality management principles: customer focus, leadership, involvement of people, process research, system approach to management, continual improvement, factual approach to design making, and mutual beneficial supplier relationships, all of which will be talked about later.
The ISO 9000 works by laying out basic standards that a quality management system must meet. Its purposes are to control the quality of products and services, ensure the safety of medical devices and food products, manage and control risk, and protect information.
To become ISO 9000 certified, an organization must first begin with a gap analysis to tell what steps need to be taken in order to upgrade its quality management system. Over a period of about 3 months, an organization should prove that their quality management system is actually working. This amount of time will give the most adequate record of performance. The organization must then use the ISO 9001 compliance audit to make sure that the quality management system is compliant. Finally, ask the registrar to carry out an external audit of your system. The 8 management principles of a quality management system can be used as a guide to improving organization performance. The first principle is customer focus, including understanding customer needs, therefore improving customer loyalty. The second principle is leadership. This involves ensuring employees are aware of organizational goals, thus reducing miscommunications and increasing efficiency and improving the quality management system. The third principle, involvement of people, is the attempt to include all levels of employees and allowing them to use their creative abilities to assist in the organization's improvement. The fourth principle is process approach, which results in lower costs due to more efficient management practices. The fifth principle is system approach to management, which manages interrelated processes as a system, resulting in efficiency in achieving objectives. The sixth process is continual improvement, which makes the organization's improvements a permanent objective. The seventh principle is a factual approach to design making,
in which the organization bases its decisions upon factual data analysis, resulting in more informed decisions. The eighth and final principle of a quality management system is mutually beneficial supplier relationships. This allows for the optimization of resources, since organizations and their suppliers are interdependent.
The 12 major processes that must be described in an ISO-9000 plan are quality management, resource management, training and awareness, product purchasing, design and development, production management, service provision, product management, customer relationship management, internal quality management audit, monitoring and measuring, and management review. The 9 steps explained in each process of quality management system development plans are development, document, implement, maintain, monitor, measure, analyze, control, and improve.
Criticisms of ISO 9000. ISO 9000 encourages organizations to act in ways that makes things worse for their customers. Also, quality by inspection is not quality. Quality is by reducing variation, Deming's practices. Also, ISO 9000 starts from the flawed presumption that work is best controlled by specifying and controlling procedures. Also, the typical method of implementation is bound to cause sub-optimization of performance. Also, the standard relies too much on people's interpretations of quality, particularly those of auditors, because every perception of quality is different. Lastly, the standard promotes, encourages, and explicitly demands actions which cause sub-optimization. When people are subjected to external controls, they will be inclined to pay attention only to those things that are affected by the controls. ISO 9000 has discouraged managers from learning about the theory of variation as well. ISO 9000 has failed to foster good customer-supplier relations. Also, and lastly, as an intervention, ISO 9000 has not encouraged managers to think differently.